Okay, Sudhir, you're live now.
So, very good evening, everyone. Welcome to another disruptive education session with Global Education and Training Institute. I'm your host, Sudhir Kumar, and we have our very special and very versatile guest today, Dr. Pooja V. Anand. We have met her earlier as well, and she is the assistant professor at the Department of Psychology in Daulat Ram College, University of Delhi. She has authored the book Emotional Intelligence Journey to Self Positive in 2017, and she is the co editor of the book Application of Psychology, which was published in 2018. So, today we are going to discuss much more about the emotional intelligence, how it is different, and why it is needed in current time. So, very warm welcome, and we are totally honored to welcome you, ma'am, on our show today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
So, ma'am, we often heard about IQ, but this is the new thing which we are listening from last 5 or 6 years, that EQ or emotional intelligence. So, what it is exactly?
Before I go on to explain what emotional intelligence is, I would like to give you a brief history in terms of how we treat different aspects in our society. Okay, if you look at our life and different aspects of our life, you will see that there are mainly two aspects. One is cognitive, and the other is affective. Cognitive is mainly your thought processes, right? Your belief systems. But when it comes to affective is your emotion, right? So, right from the beginning, if you see, the perspective has been that logic or reasoning or rationality is superior, right? We always tell everyone to be practical, to be reasonable, but emotions somewhere they have not been given a lot of importance, right? They have got secondary importance as if they are something to be tamed, right? They should not be let loose, otherwise they will be disruptive, they are problematic. So what has happened is that because of that, in due course of time, you see that we have not given a lot of importance to emotions. And then you see the problems that are happening in the society, right? So I'll come to that later. And therefore, the concept of emotional intelligence came, and it talks about bringing both of these aspects together, right? Bringing the cognitive and the affective or the emotional aspect together. So, if you look at the term emotional intelligence, it consists of two terms, right? Emotions and intelligence. So, basically, it talks about being intelligent about your emotions, right? Being aware about your emotions, understanding your emotions, managing your emotions, understanding the emotions of other people, and managing your relations in a very effective and a very satisfactory kind of a manner. So, in a nutshell, this is emotional intelligence.
Very well explained, ma'am. So, the belief system and handling about the emotion, especially for the guys, means for the boys, if I talk about, we have been taught since childhood that we do not have to put much focus on it. We
Mhm.
have been taught to ignore these emotions. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
right. So, what suggestion you would like to give to the parents or the viewers, that how to nurture and how to channelize those emotions? Because I believe that emotions in female and emotion in boys or males, they have been separate and they have been their unique things. So, but we always treat that, okay, masculinity and femininity. So, how do you say that? Means how to channelize and how to nurture those things?
Right. I think you've asked a very, very relevant question because let me first talk about the general perspective. As I started, I told you that right from the beginning, whenever somebody cries, okay, let alone whether it's a girl or a boy, the first thing we say, chup ho jao. Okay, everything is going to be fine. Okay, and good people or good girl, good boys don't cry. So the first thing is to just snub the emotion, okay, and let the emotion not be expressed properly, right? Now, if you're talking about gender differences, I think they are quite the way we've been brought up is that okay, it's okay for girls to cry, it's okay for them to express their emotions, but for boys, for men, it's very difficult, right? It's not as if they don't want to cry. right? It's as if they don't want to get sad. But the thing is about the acceptability and the gender norms and the way we are socialized, they are totally pressurized not to express their emotions and be all, masculine and just be all strong. I think it's a very, very wrong way of bringing up our children. And therefore, I said it's really important that first of all, we acknowledge that emotions are important, not just for boys, it's for everyone, for children, for adults. It's really, really important to first of all acknowledge that you're experiencing emotions and then how to manage those emotions. So, gender differences really have to be, seen in a very different way now. And we have to understand that it's not boys, it's not girls that you have to tell them to behave in a certain way. So it's very, very wrong. And we need to really change our parenting practices and socialization practices in that regard.
So can this be taught, or can we give some trainings? And if we can give training, so training to the that the kids is relevant, or the parents, or to the teachers. What kind of what how can we levelize it?
Okay, Sudhirji, before I go on to the training aspect, I would like to talk about the components of emotional intelligence, because if we don't
Sure.
understand the concept or the construct better, I think people should first understand what it is, and then I will be going to the training aspect later. That is okay?
Yes, yes, definitely, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so before I move on to whether it can be learned, whether it's trainable or not, I'll first like to talk about what are the components of emotional intelligence. What is it made up of? Now, if you see that a lot of work has happened on emotional intelligence very recently, okay, so it was only in 1990 that the first model of emotional intelligence or the first definition of emotional intelligence came. But the general population was not much aware about it, right? It was only through the work of Daniel Goleman and several other people who started writing in newspapers and magazines about emotional intelligence that the general public became aware about it. So, what I'm going to do is that what Daniel Goleman has talked about, I'm going to be briefly talking about his model because I feel it's a very comprehensive kind of a model so that people understand what emotional intelligence is in a better way. So, Daniel Goleman, he talked about a model of emotional intelligence. He calls it as a competency. Okay, so I'll be coming to that aspect later. Now, he says that I'll be talking about the revised model, which he came up later along with his colleagues. So, there he talks about four main components of emotional intelligence. And if you understand these four components, you will understand the entire concept of emotional intelligence. Okay. Now, according to him and several other models later, also, the first component of emotional intelligence is self awareness, right? That means before you want to enhance yourself, before you want to manage your emotions, the first thing that you need to do is, first of all, understand your emotions, be aware about your emotions. Okay. Now, so based on that, I'll be talking about the training question later, right? So we have to be aware about our emotions, what experiences or what physiological experiences we are having. We need to be aware of what words should we use, which emotion word should we use to label a certain emotion. We should be aware about what thoughts are going on while we are experiencing a certain emotion, right? What bodily changes are occurring while we are experiencing a certain emotion. And as I've told you that in our society that we have not talked about emotions so much. So to a point of time, we don't even know what is going on in our body. And sometimes we just mislabel a certain emotion. For example,
Yes.
I may mislabel excitement as anxiety, right?
Yes.
If I
Yes.
have labeled it correctly, excitement is a beautiful emotion and it would enhance my performance. But if I mislabel my emotion of excitement as a high level of anxiety, it may hamper my performance, right? So the first thing that we need to be aware is to be aware about our emotions. That's the first thing, which is called self awareness.
Mhm.
Second, the second component is self management. Now, self management is a very core component of emotional intelligence. It means how you manage your emotions, right? Now, here a lot of the sub components will come. For example, when you're talking about self-management, how do you control your impulses? For example, if you're studying, right? So a lot of the people have the habit of checking their phone a lot of the times or going on social media. So that is called having an impulse, right? So if you're able to control that impulse, you will be better able to study. So impulse control is important. Delaying gratification is important. So you want to watch a movie and your exam is tomorrow, so delaying gratification would mean, okay, let me prepare for my exam. Let me take my exam and do very well. And then I can watch the same movie tomorrow, right? That is called delaying gratification. Now, that is a part of emotional intelligence, right? So, managing your emotions is really important. And when we're talking about managing our emotions, I think particularly the distressing emotions like anxiety, like fear, like stress, like anger. So we really need to manage these kind of emotions. All right. Let's come to the third component, which is empathy. Now, empathy is a very, very important component because if you look at self awareness and self management, both of them belong to the domain of the self. That means what you're doing with yourself, right? Now we move on to the second domain, which is the social, because emotional intelligence is also about how you're managing your emotions in a social context, right? So when we go to the social, the third component is empathy, which Goldman also says, social awareness. Empathy is a very, very important emotion and it is different from sympathy. Empathy means that I'm able to experience what the other person is experiencing without being judgmental and from their point of view, right? Sympathy is that I'm trying to understand a person's situation from my own perspective, and therefore I feel pity, I feel sorrowful for that person. But empathy would be trying to understand a situation from the point of view of that person, right? So that is being with the person or feeling that emotion fully. That is empathy, not being judgmental, accepting the other person. So that's really important, right? So that was the third component. And the last component is social skills or relationship management, wherein you try to have better or more meaningful relationships with other people. Now, here also you have a lot of components or subcomponents. A very important component or a part of relationship management are our communication skills, right? How we communicate with each other. And when we talk about communication, let's not only think about talking, because a lot of the times when we talk about communication skills, it's only about talking, right? Communication skills also means a lot of non-verbal behavior, right? Listening is also a part of communication skills. So if somebody is talking to you and you're looking outside of the window, or you're constantly looking at your watch, what kind of a message are you giving to that person? So communication skills are really important, particularly when you are having a disagreement with somebody, when you're having a fight with somebody. Just watch what you're saying to that person, right? A lot of the times when we are angry, we see a lot of the things which may sort of disturb our relationships or harm our relationships. So we have to be very, very careful about that. And in this context, I'll be talking about I messages later, right? I messages, capital I. So communication skills are important. Then within relationship management, another important thing is conflict resolution. See, in all relationships, when two people are in a relationship, obviously there is a scope for a lot of friendship, a lot of love, but at the same time, there's also a scope of conflict, right?
Right.
How to manage that conflict is very, very important. Do you just avoid talking to the person, or do you just avoid talking about that conflict? No, that is not a very healthy strategy. A very healthy strategy is arriving at a collaborative solution, okay, talking it out with that person positively and collaborating so that you are able to get a joint solution to that problem. So that is important. Another aspect of relationship management is team building. If you see a lot of workplaces, even in schools now, a lot of the projects are team based, right? Now if you say that I'm not going to talk to this person, I will not talk to that person, so that is not a very correct way to be. So how do you work in a team is also very, very important. Yes, so your communication skills will also come here. Then, of course, another very important subcomponent of relationship management is developing other people. What are you doing to develop the talents or the potential of other people? So I think in all, if you see emotional intelligence, the components of emotional intelligence are four, which is self-awareness, self-management, empathy, and relationship management. So all these four together make up emotional intelligence.
And very well said. And those are some very nice points which we have understood. And like one thing which you have mentioned, like empathy, which is a very important human value and emotion, that being non-judgmental, listening to the other person. This is quite
Yeah.
very important these days.
Hmm.
So this comes to my next question: that is IQ more important than EQ, or EQ is more important than IQ?
Okay, I think again a very, very relevant question. And I will again take you back to what I spoke in the beginning. That right from the beginning, we have given a lot of importance to rationality, to logic, to achievement. Okay, in fact, if you remember when I was talking about positive education, we give a lot of importance to success, to academic achievement. Okay, so in our society, what happens is IQ or high IQ is celebrated. We give a lot of importance to the person who has a high IQ. Every day, if you open the newspaper, you will see, oh, this scientist has this much of IQ. Wow, okay, or this person has broken the record of this person and has even more high IQ. So in a society we keep celebrating the aspect of IQ, and with IQ we sort of a related aspect is we celebrate academic achievement a lot. Okay, so the feeling is that our neighborhood, you will see that this person's son has scored these many marks, why can't you get these many marks? Okay, there's a lot of pressure that we have built up on our children for academic achievement. Now let me tell you that yes, academic achievement is important, but high IQ or academic achievement, if this was the case, then all the people who have high IQ, all the people who are studying at good institutions should be the happiest people on earth. Is it? Is
Very
it
true.
true or is it wrong? It's not. So
No,
the
it's not.
highest
Yes,
IQ,
yes.
it's
They are
100%.
baffled with some kind of ideas all the time.
All of us are. So let's not say that high IQ is a guarantee for everything. It may give you success, yes, but let me tell you that also that when we're talking about IQ, okay, and we have given so much importance to IQ and academic achievement. What kind of a world are we living in today? Are we living in a perfect world? I don't think so. Just look at our children, look at our adolescents. The kind of issues that they are facing is because we have put so much of pressure on them to show a lot of logic, to show a lot of reasoning, do very well in their academics. But through different theories we've come to know that it's not just IQ which is important. Okay, and there comes the beauty of emotional intelligence, that this Goldman also says that IQ is important, yes, it's sort of like a cutoff. So in a job, if certain marks are required, if you have those marks, you cross that line, you cross that threshold, fine. But after that, IQ does not help you. How well you are doing in an educational institution, how well you're doing in your job, will not be then dependent upon so much upon your IQ, but your emotional intelligence. Okay, how you are talking to the people who you are working with, how you are managing yourself, how you're managing your time, how you are motivating yourself to do your work, how you're setting goals, all this is going to help you more. So let us not debate as to what whether IQ is important or EQ is important. Let us give importance to both of them. In fact, if we were to decide, okay, which is more important, I would say emotional intelligence, because that is going to decide whether actually you're going to be successful or actually you're going to do well in your life. And also let us change the definition of what it means to be successful, what it means to be doing well in your life. I think we need to bring in the concept of well-being and happiness, rather than thinking that if you have a lot of money, you're the most successful person on earth. We need to change our definitions, and therefore I think emotional intelligence is really, really critical and really important.
Yes, I'm totally agree with you on this, ma'am. And we have seen that most of the top scorer in the universities or in the school system as well, they did not end up being happy sometimes, and they were not even taught to handle failures,
Hmm.
right? So this is the main
Very, very
shortcoming.
important point. I think I'm going to elaborate on this point because we, when we bring up our children, when we socialize our children, we always socialize them for success. Okay, so if you're successful, so you have to study, you have to do this job. So we always program them for success, right? But we do not tell them how to handle failure. And emotional intelligence will really help you to understand that, yes, when you're doing 10 different things, obviously it's not possible for you to excel in all those 10 different things, right? So handling failure is a very, very important part, and we really need to tell our children, we really need to teach our children to handle failure as well, and take it gracefully, take it more as a learning experience rather than a failure.
Right, and that's a very valid point that we have to take it as a learning. It's been said that the person gains experience with their failures, not with the when things get go smooth.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And ma'am, as you have mentioned that emotional intelligence is required when we step into the office or in the job, or even if we are into a relationship. So, how do you think that emotional intelligence actually plays a role in various domains of life?
Okay. Now, before I go on to the different domains of life, I would like to just tell you that emotional intelligence is about emotions, right? And whichever domain you have emotions, emotional intelligence is going to be really important. Now, tell me
Right.
one domain of life where you do not experience emotions. We
I
experience
I,
emotions in all domains of life.
I cannot think of any one of it.
Absolutely. So there is no single domain of life where you do not experience emotions. So therefore, in every single domain of life, emotional intelligence is going to be important. But because we are talking about different domains, I'll be specifying, a few of them which are really, really very crucial. Let's talk about academic achievement because I've been talking about it throughout, and as if IQ, having high IQ will lead to very high academic achievement. No, it has been found that people who have higher EQ, they do even better in their studies. Why? Just try to understand. And for understanding that, just look at the four components of emotional intelligence and just apply to that domain. For example, if you're looking at academic achievement, if you look at self awareness. Now, while I was talking about the components of emotional intelligence, there is also a concept which is called SWOT analysis. So, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges. So, when you're studying, right, you should do a SWOT analysis. Okay, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are my opportunities? And what are my challenges? Do that analysis. You'll be better aware about your resources, your current position, the emotions that you're experiencing. Okay, so be aware about your emotions. Try to see before an exam, before any viva, before any interview, try to see whether you're experiencing a lot of anxiety or whether you are experiencing excitement. So you have to label your emotions correctly. That is one. Second is self management. So I again go back to impulse control. So while I'm studying for my exam, there is a temptation for me to check my phone every 10 minutes. Now, can I control that temptation while I'm studying? Okay. Can I tell myself, okay, I'm going to watch this movie tomorrow, or I'm going to watch this movie 1 month later? It's not going to go anywhere. Movies will not go anywhere, right? But my exam will not happen every day. So, all these things, if we apply to academic achievement, you will see that students, these are established studies. I'm not talking from my own, beliefs. I'm talking from the scientific point of view. A lot of studies have shown that students who have higher emotional intelligence, they do better in their exams, they do better in terms of academic achievement. So that's one domain. I think students will benefit a lot by being emotionally intelligent. So that's one. Second is in terms of, let's say, pro social behavior. Okay, let's see a society. You will see that a lot of the times somebody is on the road and they've met an accident. A lot of the people will just come and will just see what is happening. They will click, they will make videos, and then they will go. Where is that, will, where is that feeling to help the other person, right? So it has been found that if you're emotionally intelligent, you're more helpful. Why? Because of the aspect of empathy. You're able to understand the problem of that person from their point of view. Okay, just you imagine yourself in the situation which the other person is facing. So instead of going and clicking or making videos of that person, you would rather go and help that person. So studies have shown that people who are higher on emotional intelligence are also more pro-social, they are more helpful, they're more kind. Okay, so that domain I think is really important and needs to be really, really emphasized. Another domain is really important is about deviant behavior or antisocial behavior. It has been found, a lot of studies have shown that whether you're looking at any criminal behavior or you're looking at substance abuse, okay, alcohol or drugs, or you're looking at violence, right, or you're looking at bullying in schools or in workplaces, it has been found that people who are higher on emotional intelligence, they are less likely to engage in these kind of, deviant behaviors. So really very, very substantial proof has come with regard to this point. So another domain, if you look at the domain of, let's say, health, right, if you're talking about our physical health, so even in physical health, being emotionally intelligent really helps you in attaining your goal, because self motivation is a part of emotional intelligence. Being optimistic is a part of emotional intelligence, and a lot of studies have shown that if you're optimistic, if you expect good things to happen in the future, then you're more likely to exercise, you're more likely to eat in a healthy way, right? So, very simply, if you see, health is a very, very core area where emotional intelligence plays a very important role. Then let's come to relationships. I have talked about it, and managing your relationships is a part of emotional intelligence. So you're aware about your emotions, you know what the other person does not like. So you do not do those things to irritate that person. You communicate in a positive way. Okay. So your relationships are more satisfying, intelligent. Now let's come to the domain of work. Okay, a lot of research has happened in terms of the importance of emotional intelligence at the workplace. A lot of research, particularly that of Goldman. So a lot of
Yes.
the companies, what they do is they train their employees on emotional intelligence, or they assess their employees in terms of who is higher on emotional intelligence. And it has been found that emotionally intelligent employees, they do way better in terms of performance. They are less likely to leave the organization. They are less likely to get involved in fights in offices. Okay, so it really leads to a lot of productivity, a lot of efficiency at the workplace. So a lot of evidence is there for that. And connected to workplace behavior, I would say leadership. A lot of studies have happened in terms of the role of emotional intelligence in leadership or successful leadership. It has been found that the leaders who we really like, leaders who really connect with the people, okay, so it could be leader in any domain, in terms of a CEO of an office, okay, or any kind, or a principal of a school. So if they are emotionally intelligent, that office or that institution does way better, because there's a concept called transformational leadership, right, which is very significantly positively correlated with emotional intelligence. So if you look at, I've talked about 6 to 7 domains, and any domain of life, like I started with, if you're emotionally intelligent, you will definitely be benefited in that domain of life.
Very well said, ma'am. And I have experienced that because I worked in many corporates, and this is the key element which we have been taught, like team working, emotional
Yes,
intelligence, then how to, the time management and the conflict management, which you have just mentioned.
absolutely.
The
Yeah.
conflict management is also a necessary element because every now and then we get engaged with someone in very, bad way. How to
Yeah.
keep your sanity intact and how to handle your impulsive emotion is a day-to-day thing. And as you have said that from the very young age we have to ask our parents or teachers to guide the young ones that how to identify, as you have clearly mentioned, that how to label the emotions. This is what is quite necessary, right?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
we understood from you that it is quite essential is in every aspect of our life. We cannot eliminate it. We cannot take it out from anything in day-to-day
Yes.
life.
Yes.
And emotionally balanced people are actually much more successful, even in the adverse situation of their life. They keep their hopes intact. They held their hopes high, and they come out with that situation very gracefully. And we have a lot of evidence and studies with it, and the
Yes.
kind of goal settings they do, the kind of vision they have. So this
Hmm.
comes with not with the IQ, but I think that with the good emotional intelligence.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
So is this the thing can be taught, or it is actually developed by the day-to-day life or by our learning of regular things?
Okay, so the reason why I'm really attracted to this topic of emotional intelligence, it was a part of my PhD work also, is the very fact that it is learnable. You can learn to be more emotionally intelligent. You can be trained to be more emotionally intelligent. Okay,
But
because
ma'am,
if I, yes,
I have a question. I'm sorry to interrupt you in between,
no
but don't
problem.
you think that an emotional intelligent person has to deal with a lot of people, and how hard it would become for him to handle the people who are not emotionally balanced? I think that
Okay,
that would create chaos.
I think when we're talking about learning of emotional intelligence, we are not talking about a certain individual. Yes, right now you will see a lot of the people who are not emotionally intelligent, and they can be disruptive. They can do a lot of the things which are not very good for the society or for a certain institution. I agree with that. And therefore, the importance of emotional intelligence. Okay. And therefore, when we talk about that trainability, that being able to learn emotional intelligence, so that's the best thing about emotional intelligence, that it is not a fixed trait. It is not something that you're born with, that you're born emotionally intelligent. Now you just can't do anything about it. I think that's a very pessimistic way to think about it. Emotional intelligence, the way Goldman has conceptualized it, the way I have also developed a model of emotional intelligence, the 3S model, there also I talk about emotional intelligence as a competency. The word competency is really, really important. What is a competency? It is something that you can acquire with more learning, with more practice, with more training. Okay. So that's the most important thing about emotional intelligence, that you need to talk about it with your students, with your children. And over time, with the different trainings and with the different experiences and activities, they will be able to better develop emotional intelligence. So, yes, it is a learnable competency.
Wonderful. This is and so how we develop it means you have wrote a book about it and did a lot of
Yeah.
research. So what easy tips you can give to us in order to develop it on a regular basis?
All right. Now, this will take a while because I have talked about the components of emotional intelligence.
Totally
And like
understand
I
that.
told you, when I was talking about the components of emotional intelligence, I told you to listen to it carefully. I'm going to again repeat it now. See, when you have to develop emotional intelligence, just focus on those components of emotional intelligence. Okay. So, when you're talking about self awareness, so how can you be more self aware? Self aware, like I told you, that you should not snub your emotions. You should accept your emotions, first of all. What you're experiencing, be more in tune with your emotions. I'll give you an example. There are some people who have a constant, irritable expression on their face. And when you tell them, they'll tell you that they are not even aware that they have such an emotional expression. Or there are some people who just constantly smile and they're not even aware that they're constantly smiling. Okay. So, what do these little examples tell us? That we are not even aware of our own emotional expression, leave alone the emotional expressions of other people. Okay. So, we first need to be aware about how we are experiencing a certain emotion, how are we expressing a certain emotion. Okay. So, you have to see what thoughts you're having while you're experiencing a certain emotion. what physiological changes are happening in your body. Are you shaking? Are you sweating? Okay, or are you feeling excited? So you have to, rather than saying I am feeling butterflies in my stomach, try to use better words. Try to enhance your vocabulary about emotions and use a correct emotion to label that emotion that you're experiencing at that point of time. That's really important. Okay, so you need to educate yourself more about emotions. Next is, like I told you about a SWOT list. You should always try to make a SWOT list for yourself. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your opportunities? What are your challenges? And try to do that often, so that you are more updated, you're more aware as to who you are and what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. That is really important. Try to maintain an emotion journal. I know emotion journal means you have a diary where you enter every day at night which emotions did you experience today. It's really, really important. It looks very tedious. It looks very, oh my God, I have to write down about my emotions. But once you start doing that, you will be better aware. Oh my God, I was angry at so many times during this week. You will be better aware about your emotions. Okay. You should introspect about, like I said, when you're writing your diary, when you're writing your journal, you will look within, you will introspect which emotions you're experiencing more, which emotions you would like to experience more. So these are some of the strategies of enhancing your self-awareness. I think a very important role in self-awareness is also the role of other people. You can take feedback from other people, right? If somebody tells you that you have a constant frown on your face, then you have to really work on that you are not supposed to, or you don't mean to show a frown, but it is there on your face. So you need to work on that. So take feedback from other people, introspect on that feedback, and work on that feedback. So these are some of the tips by which you can enhance your self awareness. Let's come to self management. Self management, as I told you, you need to train yourself. You need to tell yourself, okay, it's all right. Because in my earlier session on positive education, I talked about, the concept of not dividing emotions as positive or negative. We need to accept all kinds of emotions. Okay, so all emotions are functional, and therefore we are experiencing those emotions. So anger has a role in our life, shame has a role in our life, guilt has a role in our life. So let's accept the emotions instead of saying I should not get angry or I should not get anxious. It's not possible, right, to not get angry, not get anxious, but to manage it in a way so that you're able to sort of control it, you're managing it. Even positive emotions, if you are looking at joy, you are able to use that positive emotion to enhance your productivity, to enhance your creativity. Okay, so managing emotions is really important, and particularly if you're talking about distressing emotions like anger. So how do you manage that, right? So how do you sort of tell yourself, okay, all right, can I say this in a better way if I'm angry? Because you need to maintain your relationships also. Okay, then in terms of empathy, like I told you, you have to try not to be judgmental. Okay, do not judge the other person. If somebody shares something with you, you just think in your mind, oh my God, what kind of a person this is. Now the moment you're thinking that, it's going to be on your face, and why should you judge the other person, right? So all these things are important. You're trying to understand the situation of a person from their perspective. So this is how you can enhance your empathy. And like I told you, through enhancing your communication skills, through enhancing your conflict resolution skills, by team building skills, you can better be able to manage your relationships. Now, here I would like to talk about a particular technique when I'm talking about communication skills. There's a particular technique which is called I messages. Okay, capital I. What are I
Okay.
messages? Yeah,
Hmm.
it's really important. See, this technique is given by a person called Tom Gordon, if I'm not wrong, and he talks about how do we communicate with each other when we are angry or when we are stressed out is really important. Because let me give you an example. A lot of the time what happens, a very common example is somebody, your friend borrows a book from you, okay, and does not return it to you on time, right? So the first thing that we would say is, you're not my friend, or I'm not going to talk to you, or you are so irresponsible, you hurt me. This is the way we talk. Okay, just try to observe what you say when you're angry. But our messages tell you to say the same thing in a more positive way, in a more concrete way. So, and there are four steps to that. For example, if your friend hasn't returned the book to you, so how do you specifically tell her? Instead of saying you are irresponsible, you're not my friend. First of all, you tell her that when you do not or when you did not return my book on time. Okay, so you're specifically telling her the situation. Second, I had to go to the library and again get that book issued. Okay, so that means it's showing that you had to make additional effort. Third step is the most important. Instead of saying you hurt me, say I felt hurt. That changes a lot. Okay, just say I felt hurt. And then at the fourth step, tell the person what do you expect them to do in the future. So very politely tell them, next time when you take a book from me, please return it to me on time so that I don't have to go and reissue it. Now just tell me which one is better. I know this looks very, it looks very long. It looks, it's going to take a lot of time. I can't do it. No, it will become automatic once you start practicing it. Okay, isn't it better than to say that you are irresponsible, you're not my friend, which may even lead to adverse consequences on your relationship, right? So this is a very very healthy strategy to be emotionally intelligent. So these are some of the ways in which you can enhance, and there are different exercises. It will take a very very long session for me to elaborate on different
And I think
exercises.
that the tip which you have just given to us, that using I. So, Miss, I have read somewhere that we are responsible for our own happiness and for our own emotions. We should not
Absolutely.
allow some outsider to control our emotions,
True, true.
right? So
Why should
rather
we say
than
you hurt me? Why should we say you hurt me? I felt
right,
hurt.
right. So
You're
somehow we are
owning,
conditioning our
you're owning your
brain to
emotion.
think about
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. You are owning your emotion. You're accepting your emotion as your own. So that's really
Right.
important.
Very true, ma'am. So this is one small exercise which I would like our viewers to understand, that using that I word on regular basis in order to identify your emotions, that would actually help you in order to channelize your emotions, to identify and to label your emotions on a regular basis, and that would eventually help you in handling those. Right? Do not let give command to someone else to control your emotions.
Absolutely. Yes.
So, ma'am, we have talked a lot about emotional intelligence. So can we consider this EI as a key skill?
Okay, I think this is a very, very important question. And I keep, reading up about discussions on this. I read about a discussion somewhere in a psychology book where they were actually debating. There were two virtues, and they were actually debating which is the master virtue. Okay, so one, they were talking about wisdom, and the second, they were talking about self regulation. And this is a very key debate in psychology whether wisdom is the master virtue. I mean, it is the sort of the epitome, or it is the master virtue, or whether self regulation is the master virtue. After
Okay.
reading up about emotional intelligence, after having taught emotional intelligence for so many years, I feel that instead of self regulation, we or wisdom, emotional intelligence is the master virtue. Why? Because I have just explained to you every domain of life is colored by emotions, right? And every domain, whether you're a student, whether you are an office going person, whether you're a dancer, anything, whether you're a parent, whether you're a teacher, emotions are going to be experienced by you every single time of the day. And therefore if you're emotionally intelligent, you're better able to look at your life, you're better able to live your life. So I feel, this is my personal point of view, that it is the master virtue rather than, because self-regulation is a part of emotional intelligence. So instead of saying self-regulation, let's look at emotional intelligence as the master virtue. So that's my own personal perspective, which I wanted to convey.
Very well said, ma'am. And thank you so much for giving us such wonderful insight and knowledge about the emotional intelligence. And we have learned a lot today. So
Thank
now
you.
is the time to read some comments from our viewers. So we have Aman Atwal, then we have Dr. Minu Bhatnagar, Then Aman Atwal is good evening everyone. Myself Amandeep Kaur from Innocent Heart High School. Okay, so let me address some questions which we have got. Okay, so Mrs. Madhulika Dheer Bhaskar, she has asked that I think if a person is emotionally intelligent, he or she can help others in a effective manner.
Hmm. So I think I covered that in my lecture. In fact, when I was talking about the domains of your life which are covered by emotional intelligence,
Yes,
I talked
empathy
about
you have
pro-social.
mentioned.
I did talk about pro-social behavior. That means that
Yes.
a very core component of helping other people. See, there is a model of helping behavior, right, which is called the model of bystander intervention. Okay, if you study social
Okay.
psychology, and there are
Mm-hmm.
5 steps in that model by Latani and Dale. And the first step is that you notice if somebody is in trouble and you notice that he or she requires help. I think that's the first thing. And empathy is a very core part of emotional intelligence. First of all, you're able to look around, you're interested in the social world. And only when you look at other people, if you're engrossed in your phone all the time, if you're thinking about yourself all the time, where is your attention? How will you even focus whether somebody is in need or somebody is in trouble and you need to help them? So I think empathy will really, first of all, you will first of all focus on the other person, and then you will understand, oh my god, what this person is going through, and you experience their pain, you experience their emotion, and therefore you would really want to go out and help the other people. So it's a very, very core part of emotional intelligence.
Very well said, ma'am. And one more question we have got from Mrs. Jyoti said that is emotional intelligence help in academics or it has any adverse effect as well?
Well, I think I've talked about academic achievement also earlier. I will repeat it because of the question. See, for students, emotional intelligence is extremely important. Like I told you, that let's say that you have an exam, you have a viva, and before you go to the viva, you experience certain physiological changes in your body, and you feel, oh my God, this I am feeling anxious, I'm feeling hyper anxious, whereas you are feeling excited for the viva, right? So self awareness would be that you are able to experience that emotion and correctly label that emotion. It will help you in better understanding your emotions or doing a SWOT analysis. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your opportunities? What are your challenges? You work upon that. Okay, so that will really help in your academics when you understand which emotion you're experiencing. Let's say that it's just 2 days to the exam and you're not feeling anxious at all. Will you even study for the exam? No, right? So you should be in touch with your emotions, and a bit of anxiety is important, right? We know the curve of anxiety and performance. Some amount of anxiety is important for you, so but it should not exceed a certain level, of course. So very, very important. Then coming to self management, you and self management, in the later model of Goldman, he also put self motivation within that. How do you set goals when you're studying for your exams? Okay, you know that, let's say this is January and your exams are in April and May. You have 4 months to prepare for your exam. Instead of studying one night before the exam, which is a very bad example of self regulation, why don't you start studying, collecting material, attending classes right from January? This is all self
True.
regulation, right? And you have more optimistic way of thinking. Try to have an optimistic way of thinking, that if I study, then I'm going to really do well in my exams. Okay, rather than whatever I do, I'm going to fail. If you have a pessimistic way of thinking, you will not be preparing for your exams, right? So these are some of the ways in which you can regulate your behavior, and then you can motivate yourself to achieve your goals. And then obviously emotional intelligence, all this is a part of emotional intelligence. So it is really, really important for academic achievement.
Thank you so much for answering that, ma'am. And one more question. This would be the last one from Vandana Kaur. She says that emotionally strong person at time is weak at heart, and he or she is unable to cope up with the peer group. How true or false this statement is?
I think you have, if this kind of a question is being asked, I think you have a very wrong understanding of emotional intelligence. Because the entire concept, and I've been talking about, let's say, for 45 minutes now, and every which way, see, let's not, first of all, we have to value emotions. Let me tell you that, okay? And I remember the question that you asked me about girls and boys and how we are trained in different ways. Let's first of all acknowledge emotions. Let's give importance to emotions, and let's not say if a person is crying or if a person is being, you feel they're being emotional, so you try to sort of say that you should not be emotional. We have to accept our emotions. That's really important. And who told you that if you are an emotional person, you're experiencing your emotions and you are not a strong person? I think all this comes from a very archaic, from a very a regressive kind of a thought process, and we have to change the way we think. Why should you not be empathic? Why should you not regulate? Why should you not be in touch with your emotions? I mean, that in fact makes you stronger, I would say. If you are emotionally intelligent, you are a stronger person rather than you are a weaker person. In fact, I give the example of bullying to you when I was talking about emotional intelligence and deviant behavior. Let's look at bullying from both the aspects. Okay, let me now also clear out something for you, that a lot of the times we feel that the people who bully others, they have very high self-esteem, and therefore they go out and bully other people. It's the reverse. A lot of the bullies are suffering from low self-esteem themselves, and therefore they go out and bully other people. Okay, so if you're emotionally intelligent, that means you're also an empathic person. You are high on empathy. You will understand that if same thing is done to me, how would I feel? You will never go out and bully another person. Okay, likewise for the victim of bullying, instead of thinking, oh my god, these people are bullying me, I should just go and hide somewhere, I should just go and cry somewhere. No, assertiveness is really important. Okay, and we need to teach our children assertiveness skills, that if somebody is doing wrong to you, somebody is bullying you, go and tell the teacher. Okay, go and tell your parents, talk about it, instead of being a victim of that bullying. So emotionally intelligent children will definitely not bully others, and if they get bullied, they know how to handle it in a very, very good way, or in a very effective way, I would say. I hope I have answered that question.
Yes, yes, you have answered it very well, and I think that this makes everyone the point clear that emotional intelligence doesn't mean that or identifying your emotion doesn't mean that you are weak. It means that
Yes,
you are much more capable than many
much more
others
stronger.
out there.
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely, yes.
And as you have mentioned that the person who actually bully, they have very fragile self-esteem. They have very fragile emotional intelligence. And once you confront them powerfully, they actually step back. So this is the solution.
Absolutely. You
And
just need to
yes.
go and question that. You don't need to take everything, and so emotional intelligence will really help you in that regard. Yes.
Right. So I think this is the time now, and it's been a very lovely session today. And thank you so much for giving us such a
Thank
wonderful
you so much.
insight and such a detailed information about emotional intelligence. And I believe, and I'm sure that lot many people would, benefited from this video, ma'am. So
Okay. Thank you.
thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.